Welcome to the Phoenician solution discussion. So this puzzle called Phoenician Fun is by Professor Harold Summers. So the Phoenicians have a special place in history of linguistics since their language was one of the first to be written in a phonetic script. And that would be unlike contemporary writing systems at the time, which were pictorial. The blurb goes on to say that the Phoenician script can be dated at around 1050 BC, and from it, the Arabic, Hebrew, and by extension Greek, Roman, and Cyrillic scripts evolved. Now, we'll go back to our reminder from the introduction video to remember to read the blurb very carefully and to read the title very carefully. Okay. So what you have to do in this puzzle is you have to match up the Phoenician names with the names on the map. Okay. So as you can see on the left, you have some Phoenician names. You have 8 of them. And you have some names on the map there, and you also have 8 of those. So we present the direct match, and your task is to match these up. So how would we start something like this? Well, what we have to do is we have to look at the data really carefully and look for patterns that repeat themselves, either in the names on the right or in the Phoenician names. So if we have a look very carefully and we're trying to find repeating patterns, if we look at the right, we can see that B and L repeat themselves on the right hand side there in Ebla and in Ribla. So that's the only 2 places where you've got BL repeating. And if we look at the Phoenician, you can see we've got these characters, which I'm going to call kind of like an L and a Gulf flag. That repeats itself twice. So maybe one of those is Ebla, and maybe one of those, we can kind of assume, one of those is Ebla and one is Ribla. And it's an assumption at this point, and we can write it down. So what we've kind of done there systematically is we've looked closely for the patterns. We've seen that the L and the flag have appeared in 2 words. And we've seen, are there any other repeated sequences in the transliterated names? So we can see, as you said, that BL is in Ribla and Ebla, and that from there we can assume that this L and little Gulf flag are B and L. And kind of furthermore, if we kind of look back at what we said in the blurb, we said that this system was phonetic. So maybe we can, assume too that these symbols are consonants, that they're referring like that. So it's the B and the L. So let's try to find those 2 symbols in other words and see if we can find them, okay? So when we kind of look back at the data again to try to find B and L, we can't find them, okay? Go back there. They're not repeated in that pattern. And so we'd be looking for something like this Gulf flag and the L, and this sort of character that looks like an 8 would be LB something. But there are no other names with LB like that. But if we really look at the data very carefully, we see that there is actually one other name which has L and B next to each other, and that's in Halab. So you can see the Gulf flag, the L and the 8, but they are in the opposite direction. So how could that be? So I've highlighted there in red where you can see it's the same symbols, but in the opposite direction. So why might that be? Could it possibly be that Phoenician is actually written right to left, and that this would make more sense? So if we go back to our blurb, what we said about it being closely related to some of the languages, and we mentioned Arabic. So if you knew anything about Hebrew or Arabic, you might think, hang on, maybe this particular language isn't left to right, and that it's actually right to left. So that brings us to the conclusion that L and this little Gulf flag are actually L and B, which they kind of, the L obviously resembles L, so maybe that's an extra hint. Yeah, so that's actually L and B and not B and L. So that gives us Ebla, Halab, and Ribla with the Phoenician words beside them there. Okay, so once we've kind of done this is, we repeat this process in this particular puzzle. So we replace these letters where they occur in the other words, and the solution should slowly fall into place. So from here, so one particular way I might be doing it is to, you can see that only one name actually begins with a B. So we could work out that that word there is Bertos, which nowadays it's called Beirut. And there's one version of this puzzle where it asks you to kind of name that city. And from there, we can see only other one name contains an or. So we get Zerapath. The other three words are Megiddo, Kadesh, and Anyuk, and the following three Phoenician names are still unassigned. So, but none of the letters in those three names have appeared in any other place, and any other name we have deciphered. However, one of the letters, so the little triangle, appears in two of the names. And so once we're kind of looking for that symbol in two places, we kind of look and say, okay, is there any other consonants that repeat twice too? And so the only consonant repeats in the three remaining names is D, in second and third place in Kadesh and Megiddo, respectively. And so that allows us to match Megiddo and Kadesh, and that the remaining name must be Anyuk. Sorry, that is the solution for Phoenician. Hope that is helpful.